Assalamu alaikum students. This is your computer teacher Aisha Anwar. I hope all of you are fine and doing well with your studies. We are studying chapter number 4, which is about control structures. In today's lecture, we will cover the last portion of your chapter. After covering this portion, chapter number 4 will be completed. Let's begin today's lecture. As we have already discussed that control structures are used to control the flow of program execution. We can change the order of lines of execution according to the requirement. So, to change the execution order, we use control structures. Let's revise their types. There are basically 3 types of control structures: sequential, selection, and repetition. We use sequential control structures to execute our program line by line, from the first line of a program till the last line of a program without skipping any part or any line. Selection control structures are based on decisions. We take some type of decision, and according to the decision, which part of a program is to be executed is selected. That's why they are known as selection, decision, or conditional control structures. The third type of control structures that we will cover in our today's lecture are the repetition control structures, or they are known as the loops. Repetition control structures repeat some specific numbers of times. If you see these flow charts, the concept of these control structures will become more clear to you. We have already discussed about the sequential control structures and selection control structures in our previous lectures. Today we are going to learn about the repetition or iteration control structures. Repetition control structures are also known as iteration control structures because there are multiple number of iterations occur during the program execution. First of all, we take some type of condition. That condition or decision is mentioned in this diamond shape. According to that condition, if this condition is true, then this block of statement will be executed, and it will remain executed until this condition remains true, either 5 times, 10 times, or 100 times. Once this condition becomes false, then some other portion of lines will be executed. We call it as repetition or iteration control structures because same set of instructions is executed again and again until some condition becomes false. So, we have to repeat some specific set of lines again and again, and we don't write those lines again and again, but we execute them with the help of iteration or repetition control structures. Let's go through repetition control structures in detail. Repetition control structures are also known as iteration or loop control structures. It refers to the execution of same set of instructions several times till a condition is met or a condition is true. A loop is a control structure that repeatedly executes a sequence of statements until the condition remains true. When the condition becomes false, that set of instructions will not be executed anymore, but it will execute until the condition remains true, no matter how many times, maybe 2 times, 5 times, 100 times, or more than 100 times. There are 3 type of loops are there that we use in our C++ programming language. These are for loop, while loop and do while loop. We will discuss them one by one. First of all, let's start with the for loop. A for loop is used to execute one or more statements for a specific number of times. It is known as counter loop. It is known as counter loop because we know in advance that how many times we have to execute the loop. This is the journal format or the syntax for the for loop. First of all, we write the reserved word for, then we initialize the loop control variable I is equals to 0. It means that the starting value of loop will be 0. Then here is the checking condition that I is less than 10, and in the last part we mentioned increment or decrement of the control variable, and all of these are separated with the semicolon, and then within the brackets we write the loop statements that are meant to be executed again and again. It means that this loop will start from 0. It will execute until or unless value of I remains less than 10, and here I plus plus means on every step the value of I will increase by 1. On the first time the value of I is 0, these statements will be executed, then I plus plus, now I becomes 1, 1 is less than 10, yes, this condition is true, then again these statements will be executed, then again I plus plus, now value of I becomes 2, 2 is less than 10, yes, this condition is true, then again these statements will be executed. In the same manner this I will be incremented on each and every step. Now when the value of I becomes 10, again it will check for the condition 10 is less than 10, no, this condition is false. Now at this time the loop will be terminated, this statements will not be executed anymore, and the code written after the for loop will be executed now. In this manner for loop works. We will discuss the execution of for loop with the help of examples in upcoming slides. So basically this is the working of the for loop. First of all, we mention the initialization. Initialization means what is the starting value of the loop. either I is equals to 0 or I is equals to 1 or maybe some other number. After initialization, the number 2 thing is the condition, that how many times we want to repeat the loop. Then after mentioning the condition will be checked. So if the condition is true, the step 3a will be executed. So if the condition is true, then the body of loop is executed. After execution of the body, it will goes towards the updation or increment or decrement of the variable. After updation or incrementing the variable, it will again check for the condition. Again, if the condition is true, the same steps will be followed, but if the condition is false now, then the body of loop will not be executed and the statements outside the loop will be executed. Okay, here is the example for the for loop. Let's discuss this example. Here, first of all, I have declared a variable int I. I will be using this variable I for controlling the loop. Here, I have used a for loop starting with the reserve word for. Then this is the initialization of the loop, that the starting value for the controlling variable I is equals to 1. Then how many times this loop will be executed? It will be executed till the value of I is less than or equal to 5, and then in the end I plus plus, this is the increment. First of all, when this loop is executed, the value of I is 1. So, 1 is less than or equals to 5. Yes, condition is true. So, this statement will be executed. Then I plus plus. I plus plus means the value of I is incremented by 1. So, it becomes 2. 2 is less than or equals to 5. Yes, condition is true. Then again this statement will be executed. Now after 2, again I plus plus, that 2 will becomes 3 now. Yes, 3 is less than or equals to 5, condition is true. Then third time again this line will be executed. Then again I plus plus, 3 will becomes 4 now. 4 is less than or equals to 5. Yes, again fourth time this line will be executed. Now again I plus plus, 4 becomes 5. Yes, 5 is less than or equals to 5. Yes, again this condition is true. Then again for the fifth time this statement will be executed. Now again I plus plus, this 5 has become 6 now. 6 is less than or equals to 5. No, the condition is false. So, it means it will not execute this statement anymore, and simply it will execute the statement which is after the loop. So, it means that this loop will be executed 5 times and will display the message this is second year D for the 5 times on the screen. Let me show you the output of this short program. Here is the output. You can see that the code is executed 5 times, and 5 times we can see the message printed on the screen, this is second year D. Okay students, now the second type of loop that we have discussed is the while loop. While loop is a sentinel loop statement. In this loop, the condition is checked at the beginning of the loop. Please keep it in your mind, the condition is checked at the beginning of the loop, and then the body of the loop executes as long as the condition remains true. The basic difference between for loop and while loop is, in for loop we know the number of iterations in advance, that how many times we want to execute the loop. But in while loop we do not know the number of iterations, but those number of iterations depending upon the condition. As long as the condition remains true, the loop is executed. We do not mention the number of iterations in advance, but we mention the condition in the beginning of the loop. Okay students, now discuss about the syntax of the while loop. This is the journal form or the syntax of the while loop. First of all, we are having the initialization of the variable, which means that we initialize the control variable like I or something like that. Then we write down the reserved word while, and within the bracket we mention some condition, like for example while I is less than or equals to 5 or 10 or something like that. Please note that there is no semicolon at the end of the while loop. Then this is the beginning of a while loop. This curly bracket shows the beginning of the while loop, and this closing of the curly bracket shows the ending of the while loop. And in between the body of a while loop you write down the number of statements that you want to execute multiple times. Here updation is also mentioned. Updation means to increment or decrement the variable, like as we have already discussed in the for loop. Now again, this is how the while loop executes step by step. First of all, it will look for the loop, then at the second number it will check for the condition. Now if the condition is true, then this step 3a will be executed. If this condition is true, then the control will comes towards the body of the loop. The body of the loop will be executed. After executing the body, it will update the variable, that is I plus plus or I minus minus. After updation, the control will go towards this condition again. If the condition is true again, then the same procedure will be repeating for many times. When the condition becomes false, then the statements outside the for loop will be executed in the end. With these numbered steps, this will be easy for you to understand. I am repeating it. First of all, it will look after the reserved word while. After looking for the while loop, it will check for the condition. If the condition is true, then the body of the loop will be executed, but if this condition is false, then the statements outside the loop will be executed. In this way, the loop executes as long as the condition remains true. Okay, here is the execution of the while loop. Through this image you might be able to understand it in much better way. First of all, it will check for the condition, then it will print the variable. If the condition is true, then it is updating the variable by 2 numbers. Here you can see that it is checking for the condition. If the condition is true, it is remaining the printing the statement. Again, Okay, I will explain you it again from the beginning of this image. Okay, first of all, a is equals to 1. It will check for condition 1 is less than 10. Yes, condition is true. So, it will print 1 on the screen. Now, a plus equals to 2. 1 plus 2 becomes 3. 3 is less than 10. Yes, it will again print 3. 3 plus 2 becomes 5. 5 is less than 10. It will print 5. Yes, again 5 plus 2 becomes 7. 7 is still less than 10. It will print 7 on the screen. Then again plus 2, 9. 9 is still less than 10. It will print 9 on the screen. 9 plus 2, 11. Yes, 11 is greater than 10. So, this condition becomes false. So, code execution is in this manner. Okay, here is the very simple example. It is the same example that we have executed with the help of for loop. Again, I have taken the variable int I is equals to 1, and using while loop I have checked the condition while I is less than or equals to 5. Until or unless this condition remains true, it will execute the statement. This is second year D, then I plus plus. Now, how will it execute? First of all, the value of I is 1, which means that 1 is less than or equals to 5. Yes, this condition is true. So, the message will be displayed on the screen. Then I plus plus means this 1 becomes 2. So, now the value of I is 2. 2 is less than or equals to 5. Yes, this is true. So, again second time this condition will be printed. Then again I plus plus 2 plus 1 becomes 3. So, third time it will be executed. Then again I plus plus, it will becomes 4. Then again I plus plus, it will becomes 5. So, 5 times this single message will be displayed on the screen. Now, after 5 I plus plus will make it 6. 6 is less than or equals to 5. No, the condition is false. So, the loop will be terminated. Output of the program that we have discussed, it is the same output that we have achieved through the for loop. But if you have noticed that the for loop executed 5 times because we have mentioned it to execute for the 5 times, but in while loop it is executed until or unless the condition remains true. When this condition becomes false, we don't be able to print that statement again. Okay students, now the third type of loop that we are going to discuss is do while loop. A do while loop is very similar to while loop, except there is a small difference. In while loop, we have discussed that condition is checked at the beginning of the loop, but in do while condition is checked at the end of the loop. So, this is the basic difference between while and do while loop, and it is an important topic. There are so many chances that the question may be given in your exam paper, like differentiate between while and do while loop. So, you should know the basic differences. We will also discuss the differences in the form of table in today's lecture. So, this is the first difference, that in while loop condition is checked at the beginning of the loop, but in do while loop condition is checked at the end of the loop. So, the body of the loop is executed at least once. Either the condition is true or false, but the body of the do while loop is executed at least for one time. It is unlike for and while loop. In for and while loop, when the condition remains false, the body of the loop will not be executed. But in do while loop, if the condition is false, the body will be executed at once, because we are checking the condition after the body of the loop. That is the reason the body of the loop is executed at least one time. So now we have discussed two differences, that first is the condition is checked at the end, and second is the body of the loop is executed at least one time. We will be discussing about the syntax of do while loop. This is the journal form or the syntax of the do while loop. First of all, we mention the reserved word do, then this is the start of a do while loop, this is the end of a do while loop, and in between these two curly brackets we write down the code that we want to execute. After the body, we write down the reserved word while, and after while we mention the condition, and please notice there is a semicolon in the do while loop. So this is the third difference, we do not put any semicolon in for loop and even in while loop, but we do mention the semicolon at the end of the condition in do while loop. Okay, again this is the step by step execution of the do while loop. With this you will be understanding it in much clear way. Number one, it will check for the reserved word do. After that, it will execute the body of the loop, whatever the statements are written, and in the body of the loop we mention the updation to update the variable, this updation like I plus plus. Then we will close the body. After closing the body, we will write down the reserved word while, and within the bracket we will mention the condition and this semicolon. If the condition is true, then again the body of the loop will be executed, but if the condition is false, the statements after the loop will be executed. So this is the step by step execution of the do while loop. These numbers will help you to understand the execution of loop in better way. Okay, again this is the same example that we have executed with the help of for and while loop. Now we have executed this same example with the help of do while loop. Here you can see that we have initialized a variable int I is equals to 1, then do. What will it do? It will execute these statements. The message will be printed on the screen, this is second year D. Then after printing the message, it will increment the variable I plus plus, and after that we have mentioned the condition while I is less than or equals to 5. So the condition will be checked and this loop will be executed until or unless I is less than or equals to 5, and we have put the semicolon over here. Now this loop will be executed. Now what will be the output of this program? Again you can see the message, this is second year D, is printed 5 times on the screen. Now let us discuss the difference between while and do while loop. So this is the difference table for the while and do while loop. While loop is the entry controlled loop, which means that we check the condition at the beginning of the loop, and do while loop is the exit controlled loop, which means we check the condition at the end of the loop. Loop executes the statement only after testing condition. If the condition is true, then the loop will be executed. But in do while loop, the statements executes at least one if the condition is false. The loop terminates if the condition becomes false. So the condition in do while loop, the condition is tested before the execution. as we have discussed earlier, there is no semicolon is at the end of the while statement in the while loop, and there is the semicolon at the end of the while statement. In difference point, you can also mention the syntax in order to make your points more appropriate and valid. Now, as we have already discussed the concept of nested if statements, there is a concept of nested loops in C++. It is same as the nested if. In nested if, we have discussed that the if statement within an statement is known as the nested if. So, what is the nested loop? Nested loop is same. A loop within another loop is known as nested loop. It is basically a combination of at least any two of the loops. It means that we can use for loop with while loop, for loop with another for loop, or we can also use for loop with do while loop. So, we can combine at least any of the two loops to make a nested loop. This is the example. Here you can see that we have used two for loops. The first for loop is known as the outer loop, the second for loop is known as the inner loop. For the outer loop, for each value of the outer loop, the inner loop will be executed completely. Now, here is another example of the nested loop. There is a for loop which is initialized at 0, then we have mentioned the condition I is less than or equals to 5. Here I plus plus is the increment. Now, for this the loop, there is another loop j is equals to 1, j is less than or equals to 5 and j plus plus, and it will execute these two statements for this loop. Now, there is a today's task for you. I am not going to explain this code, but here is the there is a task at the end of this lecture from this code that you have to find out the output of this code. Now, there are two statements that we normally use with the loops. These are the break and continue statement. We will go through their purpose quickly. We have already discussed the break statement when we discussed about the switch case. Break statement basically has two purposes. First one is it is used to terminate the case in the switch statement. We have already discussed this purpose, and I have shown you the practical demonstration for that. Program execution continues from the next line following the switch statement when this break statement meets. Its second purpose is to terminate a loop. When it is encountered inside a loop, a program execution continues from the next statement following the loop, which means whenever there comes a break statement inside the loop, it will break the loop and the control will come after the body of the loop. Here you can see for while loop, here this is for do while loop, and here it is for loop. As long as this condition or this statement meets, the loop is terminated and the control will come after the body of the loop. So, this is the purpose of the break statement. Now, let us discuss the continue statement. It is also used in inside the loop like break statement. When it is encountered, it transfers control to the beginning of the loop, skipping the remaining statements of the loop. It is opposite to the break statement. We can see that when break statement encounters, the flow of the program execution will come over here like this. Let me show you. If there is a break statement instead of continue statement, the flow of program execution will move towards here, but in continue statement it will skip the remaining statements and it will move towards the beginning of the loop. Break statement will bring you at the end of the loop, but continue statement will move towards the beginning of the loop. Here you can see for the for loop also, and for do while loop it will bring towards the beginning of the loop. Here it will check for the condition again. So, this is the small code that I executed for the break statement. Here you need to understand, I have initialized a loop with the variable I is equals to 0. I have mentioned the condition I is less than 10 and then I plus plus. If I equals to 4, which means that when the value of I becomes 4, it will break the if statement and it will come out of the if statement. When this code will be executed, this will be the output. It will be executed from 0 to 3. When 4 becomes, it will execute the it will terminate the execution and it will come out of the body, and simply the first 4 numbers will be printed on the screen, that is from 0 to 3. Now, the same code is written with the continue statement. I have executed the same code with the help of a continue statement, again initialized with 0, then I is less than 10. Then what will be the output? When I have executed, what happened? When the value of I becomes 4, it took the control from here to the again beginning of the loop. So, for completely terminating the body, it will only skip the value 4 from over here. So, you can see the output 0, 1, 2, 3, then 4 is skipped, then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is printed on the screen. So, here is the task for you. You have to mention the execute, you have to tell the output of the program discussed in the previous slide for the nested loop. You have to tell the output for that code, the example that we have discussed for the nested loop. You have to perform it on Dev C++, or you can also perform it online on the given link, this one. And please study the break statement and continue statement on this link. W3 Schools is a very good website if you want to learn anything from very beginning. It has very basic definitions, small codes. You can simply go to this website and take the code from there, and they also offer you the option to execute the code on their website also. Please try searching this website. That's all for today. If you are having any confusion, please send me your queries. Have a good day.